Hi students, welcome to the second e-lecture on KQ2, our variable weather and changing climate. Now, this e-lecture is going to be a bit different from the previous one. As you have noticed, there is a new bar here telling you the e-lecture objectives, so you can follow along as we go along. Tell me if this is effective when we meet in class, okay? So today we have two e-lecture objectives. The first is to describe the greenhouse effects, and the second is to explain how human activities lead to the enhanced greenhouse effect. So to begin this, I would have asked you to watch the video on greenhouse effects that is on the website. If you haven't watched it yet, do watch it. It's a very good and concise explanation. It gives you an overview of the greenhouse effect. Well, I will give you the facts. Okay? So first of all, why do we even call this the greenhouse effect? Now, if you look at this, what do you see? This is a house where it's green inside. It's not actually that the house is green, but inside it is green. But what do you notice about surroundings? Why do you think we call this greenhouse effect the greenhouse effect? That's because this house acts like the atmosphere of the earth, trapping heat. Okay, trapping the heat from this radiant light tubes, or when there is sunlight, trapping heat from the sun's rays to keep this area warm. And this is actually a natural process that we see on our Earth, in which the gases in our atmosphere trap the long-wave radiation emitted from the Earth's surface, which in turn warms the atmosphere. Some of these gases include water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, blah blah, and you can read all of this on your own. Now these are known as greenhouse gases, and they are all found in our atmosphere. And what they do is that they trap this sunlight. So as the sunlight passes through our atmosphere and warms the earth, of course, as you know, long wave radiation is given off by the earth. And a lot of this escapes, but actually only about 10%. So this allows the earth to not overheat, but some of it is also trapped to keep the earth warm and to sustain life. So if you notice here, they're actually talking about carbon dioxide. Now, is carbon dioxide really bad? We always blame the greenhouse effect, blame climate change on carbon dioxide. But now, is it really bad? You do remember from biology that carbon dioxide is the source of our food. It allows plants to photosynthesize. But what happens when we have too much of a good thing? Have you had, too much chocolates and then you realize, I'm gaining weight. All your Chinese New Year eating, you would know too much of those good food gives you many undesirable effects. So what happens is that we have this thing called the enhanced greenhouse effect. When we have too much carbon dioxide, we get this effect. Enhanced actually refers to the increase. So what is it that is increasing and why is it increasing? I think you should know some of the answer, so I will show you what is increasing. Now, if you remember the diagram just now, there is another form of that diagram. It will show you that the atmosphere is warm because we have this layer of greenhouse gases which traps the heat. Okay, so re-radiated heat actually keeps our earth warm at the optimum temperature. However, when we have too much of a good thing, too much carbon dioxide, too much methane, too much nitrous oxide, all of these gases fill up our atmosphere and traps heat, and it causes more of the re-emitted heat and allows less heat to escape into space. In general, this causes a warming of our Earth. Now, without the greenhouse effect, we would not survive. But this enhancement increases the general temperature of our Earth. So what is it exactly? This increase in the greenhouse gases actually leads to a rise in global temperatures, and this is actually mostly caused by human activities which release an increased amount of greenhouse gases. Too much of a good thing? Not a good thing. So how do we know that too much of a good thing is not a good thing? We look at the human activities and we look at how it has caused changes to our climates. So that leads us to the second part of this e-lecture, to explain how human activities lead to the greenhouse effect being enhanced. So first of all, how do human activities lead to enhanced greenhouse effects? Now in the past 100 years, you would know that we have had some new human activities come up. that have not been done in the previous millions of years of human activities. So 3 of those that you would know very well would be burning fossil fuels, deforestation, and changing land use. In under changing land use, there are 3 new factors. So this is a diagram of the proportion of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. As you would notice, carbon dioxide makes up a large part of it. What happens when this increases? And what happens when the other gases increase as well? Let's move on to the first human activity that leads to an enhanced greenhouse effect. Now the first of this is burning fossil fuels. So what exactly is fossil fuels? If you break down the word, you would know very clearly that it is the fuels that come from fossils. And what happens when we burn it is that we release carbon dioxide. Now fossil fuels are actually fuels like crude oil, like petroleum, like coal, natural gas that has been formed through the decomposition of dead organic matter. Now if you look at this diagram, what was originally plants would die, and these are compressed. And as time passes, as air pressure presses down on it, as people walk on it, increase pressure, and as it heats up with the increased pressure, it creates fossil fuels like coal, like petroleum. Okay, and I mean, if you know how diamonds are formed, it's also caused by pressure. So what happens is that as we burn all of these old organic matter, we release a very high carbon content. Okay, and this is one of the highest contributors of greenhouse gases, and it's even more significant because it powers 80% of our world's energy. So when so much of our world is reliant on fossil fuels, what do you think will be the impact on our greenhouse effect? Okay, now burning of fossil fuels has increased over the past 50, 60 years. And as it increases, more greenhouse gases, more carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere. And this causes an intensification of the greenhouse effect. The second factor that causes an enhanced greenhouse effect is deforestation. Now, this human activity has intensified over the past 2 centuries due to increasing populations and increasing demand for land, for materials, and this has caused the great loss of forests due to removal or clearance of trees. Now, this causes increase in levels of carbon dioxide in more than one way. Mainly, we know of it in 2 ways. First of all, you reduce the amount of trees. When you reduce trees, there's less trees to photosynthesize and less trees to convert carbon dioxide into oxygen. So, when you burn your fossil fuels, you release more carbon dioxide. Yet you also cut down the trees, and therefore that increased carbon dioxide has less trees to absorb and turn into oxygen. The second of these ways is carbon oxidation. This is when carbon in the soil reacts with oxygen to produce carbon dioxide. Now, if you know, all organic matter is based on carbon. Carbon, carbon, carbon. And when our global temperatures increase as the soil is exposed to sunlight, what happens is that this carbon interacts with the oxygen to form carbon dioxide. Now, as more areas of our world experience intense deforestation, what do you think will happen to the enhanced greenhouse effect? Okay, so remember, deforestation causes the enhancement of the greenhouse effect by increasing the amount of carbon oxidation that happens and by reducing the amount of absorption of carbon dioxide because of the smaller number of trees. Okay, next factor, changing land use. Now, changing land use also leads to the enhanced greenhouse effect, and it does so in 3 main ways: agriculture, industries, and urbanization. First of all, agriculture. Now, this is the practice of cultivating land, producing crops, and raising livestock. Essentially, you would know this through the word farming. But farming is very generic, so we talk about agriculture because it's the activity. Okay? So what happens is that when you farm, you actually run on fossil fuels, and this releases carbon dioxide, and you use fertilizers that also increases the amount of nitrous oxide in the soil, and this is released when the soil is plowed or when rain flows through the soil. And the organic matter that is pushed around when you are doing farming actually releases methane during that decomposition. And because of the high level of moisture when you farm, because you need to maintain enough water to ensure that all your crops stay alive, this decomposition is very high. In general, agriculture is a great cause of the enhanced greenhouse effect because it not only changes the natural landscape of the land, which is part of maintaining natural balance, it also causes things like deforestation. In order to get more land to farm, we actually deforest and we cut down forests, and this in general has a great impact on our enhanced greenhouse effects. So cattle farming is one example that causes great damage. Cattle farming actually releases millions of tons of methane into the atmosphere annually, as these gases are released from the digestive systems of the cattle. Now, cows fart a lot. They smell bad not just because of their feces, but also because of all the farts they release. So look at this. Per animal per year, they actually release 120 kilograms. And the Angmos, the Westerners, they love their beef. So it gets even worse. Now, if you look at non-Western cattle, Asian cattle perhaps, they actually release a lot less. Mutton, even less. Pig, even less. Of course, humans, we release a lot less, unless, you really have a lot of gas. So actually, these greenhouse gases cause a lot of damage because it releases a lot more greenhouse gases into our atmosphere. And that's not the only thing. As people want more beef, what do? We increase the number of cattle farms. To increase cattle farms, what do? We deforest. So we link it back to this. Human activities such as farming, such as deforestation are all connected, and this causes an even greater enhanced greenhouse effect. Okay? Second change in land use, industries. Now, as there are more people and as we want more goods and more services, we would build up our industries. Singapore has many industrial areas as well. And this production of goods and services causes major contribution of carbon dioxide because of the burning of fossil fuels to create energy needed to run factory processes, and also because of the waste gases and the waste materials that are released from the factories as we produce goods. The next change in land use is urbanization. It is the process by which increasing numbers of people live in urban areas. Urban areas are places that you currently live in, like cities. Okay, essentially these places are very, very high density human centers, and all these activities are concentrated in these areas, which contributes to the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. As more people live in an area, there will be more things like traffic jams, more activities, you need to build higher, and all of these require energy, and you get energy from fossil fuels. And while you are doing this, the impounded effect gets greater and greater and greater. If you remember math, compound interest, this is like major compound interest. And when you have all these activities, it causes a lot of release of greenhouse gases. So you just look at this. The number of countries that are emitting enormous amount of greenhouse gases. What do you notice? Which countries are releasing the most and which countries are releasing the least? Okay, I just want you guys to think about this. Are we using more greenhouse gases than our land size allows? Can you see Singapore? Are we still a little red dot? Okay, go back and think about this. When we go into lessons, we will do actual activities to explain and to describe and to fulfill our e-lecture objectives. Thank you for your attention.